How's it going, guys? Hey, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be talking rule changes tonight. I'm Kevin Smith with NCRHA Coast to Coast. We've got our phone line set up, and we should be ready to go here, taking calls in about 2 minutes. So I'm going to put that number up, hopefully on the screen if it lets me. That number is 520-261-6153. But we're going to be talking a few different ideas that have been floating around, I would say, really throughout the second semester, as well as obviously as the season has come to an end, and some other things that have been discussed on Twitter and online the last couple of days as we kind of put the question out. The deadline for rule change proposals is coming up. It's going to be it's less than a week away. It's next Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. And then those proposals are reviewed by the league and voted on. So obviously, we're here to help people put together a proposal and also just kind of debate some ideas. At the end of the day, if nobody submits any proposals, then no changes will be made. And that's right now. I got a message from the executive director of the NCRHA, Brennan Edwards. He informed me that able as of now. So that's obviously something to keep in mind. We're just gonna put the show out here on Facebook, and then we'll be ready to go here. So give us about, say, 30 seconds, and we'll be ready to take some calls. And NCRHA_C, the number 2C, or connect with us on Facebook, NCRHA Coast to Coast, facebook.com/NCRHAC, the number 2C, no underscore in that one. And we can get talking on some of these proposals that have been floating around. Obviously, we've seen stuff that has to do with eligibility, ideas regarding GPA or mid-semester credit checks. We've seen some transfer stuff, other ideas that have to do with forfeits and tiebreakers at the end of the regular season. If you forfeit games, should you be able to keep basically your eligibility for the conference championships, or should those losses be recorded as 10-0 losses instead of, say, a 1-0 loss? So that way you don't get that the benefit of the doubt or that advantage on your goal differential, things like that. And those little things do end up, playing a pretty big factor in certain situations. And some of them did this season. So, as mentioned before, we'll get to the phones here in a minute or two. But if you have something that you want to discuss, feel free to call in 520-261-6153. And we're getting our link posted up on Facebook, and then we'll be ready to go. So the phone lines are open. Feel free to call in. I'm going to jump right into some of the Twitter discussion that we had earlier in the past couple of days, because there's been some good discussion regarding some ideas. We did a poll, and we had a decent amount of responses. Some good ideas floating around, I would say. Definitely a few things that may not be realistic. The one thing that always comes to mind, obviously, is you see people always asking about ear guards and things like that. I don't think that's going to change. Unfortunately, I'm sorry for those of you that want to see that change happen, but I just don't see that being that comes to fruition. There are a lot of factors there at play, but obviously the biggest one is insurance for the league, and that's just something that I don't see happening. But we're gonna jump, as mentioned before, we're gonna jump right into Twitter. So we put out a Twitter poll. discussing some of these potential ideas, and this is kind of what people had to say. We got a tweet from Lindenwood Roller Hockey. How about a minimum GPA considering it's a collegiate league? That seemed to get some traction. There's definitely a good amount of people that echoed that statement online. That's something that could be proposed for sure. We'll be walking through that proposal process as well. Now, we were planning on doing this show on Blog Talk Radio, so we weren't going to have a video component. Now, that obviously didn't happen. We had some issues on that platform with when that can be broadcast, and some other kind of technical difficulties, if you will. So here we are. But for the guys that are tuning in, we appreciate it, and hopefully we can get some discussion going. We are checking Twitter and Facebook as we go along, so make sure to get in on the discussion on either of those pages. And or also we have the chat here, which is open on YouTube if you're watching. If you're watching on a computer or something where you can access that. So feel free to add to the conversation, and hopefully we can get some discussion going. I know that something else that had been discussed, transfers and transfer eligibility. That's something I could see as a possibility of something that could get passed if it's proposed the right way. And I mean, that's really what a lot of this comes down to, guys, is how these proposals are formatted. And so if you go to NCRHA.org, you can find the rule change proposal guidelines. There's actually a post on the main slideshow, if you will. It's the first post. The most recent says off-season paperwork, and the divisional applications for teams were due a couple of days ago. So if you haven't gotten that in, make sure you get that in ASAP if your team didn't turn that in. But if you go into that post, you'll also see a link for rule change proposals for that document that explains the guidelines, and it'll download it for you. But what it comes down to, a lot of it is semantics and how it's phrased. So is your proposal too strict? Is it not? Maybe it doesn't clarify exactly how this would happen. Everybody has an idea for something, or has the thought of, all right, let's do this. Let's get rid of year guards, or let's make it so teams. We saw one that had to do with teams basically pulling it back behind the net on delayed penalties, like doing something to force them to move the puck up. But then it comes down to, okay, well, how do you do that? What is the process that's going to be enforced? And, how do you actually implement that rule? So that's what it's going to come down to. How is the rule going to be implemented? And, we haven't really seen a lot of that so far. As I mentioned before, if you're just coming on, we haven't had any rule proposals submitted, but there was a lot of talk at nationals, leading up to nationals, and even the weeks that have followed about ideas for rule changes and people that wanted to see a transfer rule implemented, a GPA or a mid-semester credit check rule implemented, but there hasn't been a whole lot of traction on that. And I think the biggest thing that I want to emphasize is, this is a players' league, and it comes down to players and coaches and administrative members in each program to step up and do something about something that they don't like. If there's a rule that you don't like, or there's something that you think needs to be improved upon, that's why the rule change proposal process exists. So that doesn't mean that the league isn't going to look at certain things that could be improved upon and not take action themselves. But the idea behind having a rule change proposal, submission, is that you have an opportunity to add your voice and maybe make some changes. Now, the overtime rule for guys that haven't been around the league as long as I have, the overtime rule was something that Coast to Coast actually got passed. We proposed it a couple of years ago. There was a nationals in Fort Myers, I think it was 2012 or 2013, where you had a Miami of Ohio had 3 ties in their round robin, and there were a bunch of games that were ties where they obviously had pretty big seeding implications, and so we were kind of like, we could do something about this. So we started looking at the numbers, and it ended up that you only had maybe 1 game a weekend on average per conference that was going into overtime. It was not very time consuming, which was kind of what had always been said, that it couldn't be done because rinks might get behind. And there were a number of other factors, but anyways, we kind of supported it with evidence, and we got that change passed, and we've had overtime ever since. So the league's receptive to ideas, whether it be stuff to do with divisions, D3 teams who can play and whatnot. But without anybody submitting anything or, having discussion and getting some ideas down, nothing's going to change. Change that you want to. All that said, I do want to get to the phones. If anybody has anything they want to add, feel free to call in 520-261-6153. That's going to be the live call-in number. And we'll also be getting to Twitter here and checking on the discussion there, as well as Facebook. And we'll put those links in the chat for you guys. I wish that we were on Google Hangouts specifically, but we tried something different here with this live stream because I didn't want to keep anybody waiting too long. And here we are. So we're going to make the best of what we've got, and hopefully get some discussion going, because I don't want to be talking to myself all night. So as we kind of move on here, some of the proposals, I went back, we had a couple of shows in the past where we had talked about some of this stuff, and I kind of went back and listened to one of the podcasts from a few years ago, and some of the biggest things that were discussed were overtime was discussed. That was the summer before it got passed. We also had offsides being discussed, like an over and back rule, a shot clock rule, things of that nature that would obviously significantly change the gameplay. And I don't see anything like that happening or getting passed. But if anybody has any wild rules that they want to throw out too, we're always down to have those discussions and debates. An interesting one that got brought up was it's the standard teams that sit behind their net versus teams that sit back in their own zone, and finding that line of what the best way is to handle that. So, should a team that has the puck be forced to move the puck out, or is it on the team playing defense to come and get the puck? And that's obviously up for debate. I'm gonna see what we can do here, because I think that there is a better way that we can be possibly more interactive on this platform, and I want to make sure that we get the most out of the show. I know there's a couple of guys that are listening right now, so I'm gonna sit tight here for a sec, and I'm gonna toy with that and see what we can do, because as mentioned before, without this really being a discussion, there's not a whole lot to talk about. I'm gonna see if there's a way that we can get some graphs going so we can at least put up some of the messages and hopefully go over the change proposal. But So we've got some tweets and we can get to this. And I don't know if we'll to update the graphics, but we will make sure that we have links for rule change proposal guidelines posted. And I'll even tweet out a graphic of that sheet here in a sec. Chris Johnson tweeted in, matching pant colors for the rest of the divisions. I get the funding is tough, but it looks better and doesn't make it look like a beer league. That's a great point. I would agree with that. Matching pants, it's something that could be done. I think that when you are talking about promoting the league, being able to have pictures and videos of guys that are looking uniform is going to go a long way. I've kind of been emphasizing lately, obviously, we've seen a little bit of a decline in roller hockey participation over the past, 10, 15, I would say 10 years or so. And we're going to have to, as we work to kind of get those numbers, growing again, which I think there are a lot of people that are doing a really good job on that front, getting more, more and youth programs and stuff going, but say 10 years or so. And we're going to have to, as we work to kind of get those numbers, growing again, which I think there are a lot of people that are doing a really good job on that front, getting more, more and youth programs and stuff going, but we're obviously going to need to tap into the ice hockey community. And if you're coming from the ice hockey community and the first thing you see when you are watching, whether it be collegiate roller hockey or high school roller hockey or any form of roller hockey really that's organized and supposed to be, representing the sport at a high level, if the first thing you see is a bunch of people wearing mismatched pants, I don't think that that's going to be a good impression. And it's obviously going to make it, not be taken as seriously. So I agree, Chris, that's a really good one. I'm seeing more traction on this minimum GPA. What would that minimum GPA be? Would it be a 2.0? How would that be enforced? Transfer rule for undergrads, sit one semester before eligible to play for the new school. I think that that's probably the best way to handle that. This is from UMass. Thanks, guys, for your tweet. It's just a question of whether or not it gets proposed, whether or not people think that that should be implemented. I mean, you've got the rule of guys sitting out if they play overseas, which is also understandable. I think that a one semester rule would make sense. We've got some other kind of counter views to the league minimum GPA. Peter Schaefer be eligible in the fall. That seems pretty reasonable. I would think that that's something that, it clearly makes sense. There's no doubt about that. It's just a question of whether or not it gets proposed, whether or not people think that that should be implemented. I mean, you've got the rule of guys sitting out if they play overseas, which is also understandable. I think that a one semester rule would make sense. We've got some other kind of counter views to the league minimum GPA. Peter Schaefer from Florida Gulf Coast wrote in that that's something that should be decided upon by the school's sports club council. Also, I don't think teams play enough for it to affect their grades. It's not like ice hockey where they practice twice a week on top of games every weekend. That's fair. I think that to that point, the argument is more so whether or not so much whether roller hockey is going to affect their grades and that they shouldn't be able to participate because it's hindering their abilities as a student, more so that you want to make sure that students are the ones playing, that it's students that, you're actually going to classes, you're taking classes, you're not, failing out of your classes or dropping classes and trying to sneak by for the rest of the regular season or anything like that. So that's a good point, though. Jay Kilk says no buckets for warmups. Hashtag FaceTime. Sorry, buddy. I don't think that one's going to happen, but I respect the the passion behind that. It could be good for marketing for the league, but I think it would probably be a bad thing overall. At the very least, a mid-semester enrollment check. That's a good point. I think that that's something that could happen. No weird jerseys with unreadable or off-center numbers like Florida Gulf Coast. Also another one that I think would make sense. I mean, this has pretty much been what we've been getting at. So I think that overall, there's not. I've seen that if anybody has something they want to bring to the table, that's kind of why we're here. But it seems like it's been a lot of the same. We've got eligibility, transfers, GPA, things like that. I don't see anything gameplay wise. I did see one from Robert Morris about playing the puck with their hand on a face-off. I mean, I think that was because a lot of other leagues made that change. But if that's something you want to do, RMU guys, feel free to submit that in. Just going through here to see if there's anything else. Matching pants. So far out of the ones I've seen, I think Chris Johnson might have one of the better ones. I agree with the eligibility and the transfer rule ones. Those are things that I wish that we had, some more people here adding to that discussion, because I think that that's something that needs to be debated, but are good ideas, no doubt. The pants thing, I don't really think that there's a counter to that. If somebody has one, feel free. I really don't think that cost-wise, getting a cheap pair of black pants or getting some black sweatpants or whatever. I mean, personally, I think wearing matching sweatpants would look better than having mismatching roller pants. Call me crazy, but that's just my 2 cents. I think that would really add a lot, because you got to think. I mean, if a me crazy, but that's just my 2 cents. I think that would really add a lot, because you got to think. I mean, if just one picture being taken and posted, that's what somebody's going to see. That's their impression of the league and such. And so I think that would make a big difference in making D2 and D3 and D4, just one picture being taken and posted, that's what somebody's going to see. That's their impression of the league and such. And so I think that would make a big difference in making D2 and D3 and D4, in all those divisions, obviously looking more legitimate. Kind of stuff in here to see if there's anything else that we have missed so far. We're going to check on Facebook here, but so far it seems like that's pretty much it. Now, if somebody has something that they want to add, that's why we're here. If somebody has a proposal or wants some help getting their proposal in, that's another thing that, we would like to be able to help out with. We can help you kind of format that. As mentioned before, the site, the NCRHA site, has the template. If you have something you'd like to propose, it's going to be on ncrha.org. And maybe we'll go live here on Facebook and try to keep the discussion going instead of on here, because we might be able to reach some more people that way. But I don't know. It's definitely something that we've wanted to have these conversations and get going on this. But I think that ultimately, as mentioned before, it's going to come down to whether or not there are people that want to propose these rules. So I think right now, we'll stay on the line here for a couple of minutes and see if anybody has anything they want to call in with. we'll give it to about 6 o'clock, and then we'll shut her down, and hopefully we can give this another go, because I would like to have some discussion on this. And unfortunately, so far, it's really just been people kind of throwing, very basic ideas at the wall, but not really coming up with much more to add to that. Jim Tamburino writes in, this is Farmingdale's head coach. Dress code for all coaching staffs. The dress code in place for national championships should be the standard code all season. To be honest, I believe all teams should have a dress code as well. That's a very good point. I think that would add a lot. Having coaches looking more presentable is definitely something that would make the league be taken more seriously, and the players as well. There's no doubt about that. We've got a call coming in. Lee Strophe from Newman is going to be joining us here. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how well our microphone is working, but we're going to give it a shot here. And we'll see if we can get Lee on the line here. But to the dress code point, I think that there's something there. No doubt about that. Hey, Lee, how's it going, man?
Yeah, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We got you on here live. I don't know how well the audio quality is, so we'll give it our best bet. But I just wanted to see what was on your mind. What you got?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for always promoting roller hockey. I think you guys do a great job. And, sometimes participation always isn't at its best this time of year. But I just want to say kudos to you and your team for always putting roller hockey out there, because, it's kind of a tough sport to promote. But I think with shows like this and, everybody participating in a positive.
I just wanted to see what was on your mind. What you got?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for always promoting roller hockey. I think you guys do a great job. And, sometimes participation always isn't at its best this time of year. But I just want to say kudos to you and your team for always putting roller hockey out there, because, it's kind of a tough sport to promote. But I think with shows like this and, everybody participating in a positive or even negative way, at least gets the word out there about roller hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's kind of, I first of all, I appreciate it. And I think that's kind of what we've got to do is spread the word and work together. Is spread the word and work together to make sure, we keep the league strong and hopefully get some more players and teams involved. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some good ideas bouncing around. It's just a matter of if anybody's actually serious about wanting to actually propose those changes and get some of those changes made.
Well, obviously, I told it because it affected our squad this year. We had obviously one of the best players in the league transfer to another school, mid-season, and I'm not for that rule. As far as sitting a player for a semester, because it is run by the players. And, that's somebody's choice, and for whatever reason, that person's choice, and to sit that person because of the choice that he or she has made.
Make sure we keep this league strong and hopefully get some more players and teams involved. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some good ideas bouncing around. It's just a matter of if anybody is actually serious about wanting to actually propose those changes and get some of those rule changes made.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I called in because it affected our squad this year. We had obviously one of the best players in the league transferred to another school, mid-season, and I'm not for that rule. As far as sitting a player for a semester, because it is run by the players. And, that's somebody's choice, and for whatever reason, that's that person's choice. And to sit that person because of a choice that he or she has made, I don't agree with it. So I wouldn't propose it. Yeah, it sounds good, but then we're punishing the student, and that's not what this league should be about.
That's a good point. And I mean, I think that's an important part of this discussion and this topic is is that something that it could be a slippery slope? Like if somebody is transferring for family reasons, or you don't
pose it. It sounds good, but it's never punishing the student, and that's not what the league should be about.
That's a good point. I mean, I think that's an important part of this discussion and this topic is, you know, is that something that it could be a slippery slope? Like if somebody is transferring for family reasons, or you know why that decision is being made, and even so, like if does that matter, you know? And I don't know. I get why people are in support of it too. I mean, every other sport and a lot of the other club sports have similar rules, and I think that's probably one of the reasons. But there's no doubt there are going to be people that, you know, say want that rule just because you know, it affected them. And I think it's cool that you called in, you know, and stated your opinion on it, even though, like you said, it did affect your guys' team negatively. So I think that's commendable. Sure, man.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's one of those, you know, get it perfect. Slippery slope rule changes, and I'm not for it. And at the TA, I wasn't going to comment on Twitter because obviously it's social media, but this is being recorded as well. We have somebody out there puts in a comment like that with her Newman, who's struggling otherwise. You know, one of those crazy comments. My reply to that is, you know, GPA is GPA, and every school has requirements. And if the league wants to do it, then you're going again into an area to do that. You can't do that. So if the school requirement is a 2.0, then it's a 2.0 across the board for that particular school. Or it could even be a 2.5 or a 1.5. But that's nobody's business except the school. Now, of course, word will get out there where X school, wow, their GPA is this or that GPA is that. But as far as implementing a rule change and really getting into the personal business of a student with their GPA is totally not good. Totally not good.
What do you think about a mid-semester credit check then? You know, after because obviously every school has different deadlines for when classes, you know, can be dropped and whatnot. Is that something that should be done, say, before the conference championships, or something that, you know, should just be left as is?
I think, well, they do enrollment checks twice a year, and then the NCRHA wants one right at the end. So if a player who only has to finish his schooling and graduate in May and only needs 3 credits to do that, and he's taking an internship, why penalize that student who's been playing 4 years or 5 years and say, wow, you're only taking 3 credits and you're ineligible? Well, that's all he needs or she needs. So you're doing that enrollment check through credits. Now, if a student drops, right? If a student, I believe there is something in the rules that you need at least 9 credits to play, but there's also that exception where if you only needed and you're graduating, like you're done playing roller hockey in the collegiate level, then yes, you should be able to play.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're on your way out, but it's your senior year and you don't need you're only taking 2 classes your last semester or whatever it is, because that's all you need, of course.
Right.
And that's something.
And you're done.
Right.
You're done. You're walking in May, and then you're becoming an alumni.
Yep.
Right. You're not. Right. And I think that's perfectly fine. And also that goes for that grad student. Like some grad students only take 6 credits.
Yeah, that's true. And that's an interesting one too, because, you know, now you've got almost everybody is taking 5 years to graduate. I mean, not everybody, I don't want to say that, but the percentages have gone through the roof.
Right.
And so you've got a lot of guys that play out their eligibility undergrad, and then they go to grad school and they can't play.
Because they played 5 years.
Right.
And they can't play a 6th. So if you want to maybe look at that, where, say, a player graduates after 5 years of playing the right way, and, yeah, he only had those 3 credits for his senior year, and then he's taking that to help the game. You're getting more players involved, maybe an older player, not saying, you know, he's only 23 or 24, but it's something to look at. I don't think that's going to happen next year, but it's something to put at the table. But I would like to suggest this. I think the NCRHA does a great job, but I would love to see them really get involved with the players, coaches throughout the entire league and do like a meeting to go or something like that, where you get some face-to-face time and do a 2-hour sit and, a sit and meet and talk about these things instead of, and having something transparent where we could see we could see Brendan, we could see Rob, we could see all the league directors, and everybody bring something to the table if they want to.
I think that's a great idea. And it just comes down to, and I've had that conversation with Rob and Brennan and some of these guys, and Jeff Nolan, and I mean, you go down the list. They're all about it. The question is, when do you do it? Do you do it at nationals? Obviously, everybody's right, and that's where it gets tough. And so it's like, maybe you could do it online. Maybe that's a way to do it. But yeah, I think that really is what it comes down to, because I don't see many teams. There would be a few, I think, that would be able to pull it off, but I don't see many teams willing to send a coach or a team representative or both, which it should probably be, there should be a player and if you want to bring a coach or somebody from the school as well. Right. Exactly. There too, with it being, a club sport. So it's like, where does that, where do you do it? I don't see many teams traveling for something like that, unfortunately.
I totally agree. I think with technology nowadays, it all could be done on Skype or I know how the NCRHA does their introduction. A great job. Burke, how he does that. He presents it, the rule changes, and gives kudos to all the teams in the NCRHA. And it really kicks off our season in a positive. Then we have a meeting in Feasterville. So, I mean, it's different in not every division.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I know Mike Burke does a really good job. All the guys in the ECRHA with their presentation of, how they're kind of getting teams ready for the beginning of the season and stuff. And that might be something that, could be emulated and maybe copied across the board, but
or invite everybody to that meeting.
Right.
That's a separate meeting, but getting back to where let's maybe something like the first week in June when all colleges have graduated, coaches have had a few weeks to digest and, maybe forget about hockey for a week or two, and then kind of you're always out there recruiting, but then have a meeting in June with everybody. And if schools elect not to attend, that's on them.
Yeah.
But I think more teams out of the 20, I know there's 24 D1 teams, is probably, 30 D2 teams, and some of them are, and then you got presentation from D1 would be D3. I think you could really have a positive meeting and get those opinions out there, good, bad, or indifferent.
I think so too. And yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you just need guys that want to just throw ideas at the board and not feel like there's a bad idea in the room, because then you're going to get the best ideas. And I completely agree. And I know there are going to be some guys from the league listening to this later on. So we'll make sure that gets passed along. I think that's something that could still, potentially happen in this offseason. I don't think it's too late in the game. So.
Oh, I agree. Definitely. So I don't want to take up all your time, and I hope other people call in and, tweet at you and whatever they do, and, and just keep it in positive.
Appreciate it. Well, hey, thanks for your call, Lee, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you at some of the tournaments over the summer. I'll be around, and we look forward to getting together and rolling together.
Sounds like a plan, man.
All right, Mike. Take care.
Hey, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So Lee Strophy from Newman University with some really good points, head coach at Newman, adding a lot to the conversation there. And I think overall he's onto something, that having some sort of kind of online summit with all the clubs that want to participate, players and coaches, is kind of the way to go. And that might be the best way to really get ideas out in the open. And that's something that I'm sure the league will be looking at here in the next couple of weeks. that might even be something worth proposing as a rule proposal, that's something that should be added. And that might be one way to get that done. So I'm going to leave it at this. I know that the game's on now, so I'm sure guys are going to want to watch that. We're going to come back to this. I think we'll probably come back to this maybe tomorrow or Friday, and hopefully line up some guests and put some different proposals out there that can be discussed and get the debate going that way and get the conversation going that way. And I think that's going to be able to hopefully, gain some traction that way. And hopefully we can get a little bit more discussion going. We've had some really good points, as I mentioned right before Lee called in, Jim Tamburino talking about dress code. I think that's something that could be discussed, and I 100% see where Jim's coming from on that. And I think that from a presentation standpoint and taking the league more seriously for people that don't necessarily have those interactions with it all the time, it makes it more legitimate. It's going to add to the professional appearance and hopefully have people take things more seriously and really be able to push this league forward, which is what we're all trying to do. So we'll shoot for tomorrow. We're going to do something tomorrow. We're going to have some people on. We'll have Jim Tamburino on tomorrow, as well as we're going to take some calls, but we'll put together a little panel and hopefully have a good discussion regarding some of these potential rule changes and proposals that people have been throwing around. So for those of you who have tuned in or checked in throughout this, appreciate it. And stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have some more to add tomorrow and throughout the next couple of days as that deadline gets closer. Once again, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, the deadline for submitting your rule change proposals. So that's going to do it here for NCRHA Coast to Coast. I'm Kevin Smith. Enjoy the hockey game tonight, Vegas, Winnipeg, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Keep an eye out. We'll put out a time on social media. We'll blast it out on all the platforms here later tonight and lock that down. Thanks, guys. Take care.